Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Second Opinion podcast. It's Katie here, and we also have Dr. Krishnatewari with us as well. It's just the two of us today, and we're going to get deep.
How deep?
Pretty deep. I kind of want to, just because we've talked about it in the past, get a little up close and personal about a very up close and personal altercation that you had with a gun, with your life at stake, with other people's lives at stake. Something that not everybody gets every day.
Sounds like a horror story.
Well, it is a horror story.
It is, yes.
A very, very horrific story.
Yeah.
So I kind of want you to take me through the beginning of your day, of this day. Like, I don't know if you can remember what you have for breakfast, but take me through.
Well, I'll summarize just so everyone knows what walking into. Basically, it was a hospital shooting, right? I guess.
Yes.
So,
Well, now they're not on the edge of their seat. Now they know.
I don't think I've been involved in any other events unless
Okay, just this
you
one.
remember any more that I said?
I think just this one.
Okay.
I think.
That's one. One is enough.
So you get your patient list for the day. You're about to go round on everybody. How many did you round on before you walked into this situation?
Well, it was a little bit, I'll backtrack a little bit. So I knew this family personally. I knew the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was married to a physician that was a colleague of mine. And her mom was admitted to the hospital to undergo a type of brain surgery. She needed to have something done because at this age there's a little excess water that retains in the brain, and if it essentially had to have a shunt put in, that was an elective procedure, but required her to stay in a hospital.
Her mom.
Her mom.
Okay.
So she was admitted to me on a Friday, and Friday afternoon, I believe, and it was obviously me who admitted. So I saw her, did her physical, got everything in order so that neurosurgery was ready to take her to the OR on Monday.
Okay.
So we're just kind of coasting for the weekend, and very interesting enough, obviously, because I knew her. So we would always text, "Hey, when are you going to be here?" Well, I'm going to come in the morning. So why don't we just meet up and touch base, make sure everything's okay. So
then the family knew when you were rounding.
right. So they
which is
knew when we were
easier.
rounding and all that. So
And that's allowed?
yeah, of course,
Okay,
right?
just making sure.
Okay, yeah. No, we usually give families heads up, right?
Okay, and you give your personal number out to all patients?
I give it out to a fairly good amount, actually. Believe it or not, people don't take advantage of
That's
that.
some good service.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a situation that's sticky or personal or I don't want them to miss something and they need immediate access in case something were to hit the fan, then I give them my phone number.
That's nice.
So
you're texting them, weekends here.
Yeah, so weekends here, and it was uneventful, but it was Thanksgiving coming up the following Thursday. And so, the hospital, it's either very busy around that time because everyone is there and then they want to get discharged before Thanksgiving so they can go home and spend time with their family. So it was a relatively busy weekend from what I remember.
Yeah, it's crunch time.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I used to work out really early in the morning at that time. Even weekends too. Whenever the gym would open before I'd round at the hospital. So I knew I was getting a little bit sick. I had a sore throat that was just not getting any better. So I kind of, I rounded that weekend, uneventful. And then Sunday night, I was like, I'm really not feeling well here. My throat is getting worse. I'm coughing. And I was like, let me skip the 5 a.m. gym and actually just go to the hospital at 5:30, 6 a.m. on a Monday. So at least I could see, and I'm more worried about me having a chance to work out in the afternoon if I feel better. So then it's Monday morning and I get there early and I walk in the room and she's not there. And I felt bad texting that early. I didn't want to say because I was just going to come back anyways. I just wanted.
And it could have alarmed the family getting a text that early. They might have thought something went wrong.
Yeah. And she knows. I mean, she comes from a medical family, so she understands that timing can be off and everything. But I just wanted to start on that floor and at least see the patients and then finish it up so I could spend time when she was there and answer whatever questions was needed because her mom was going to go to the surgery, have surgery done that day,
Okay.
later that morning. So I walk in the room and just for so you can just visualize it. Her stepfather was there, and of course her mom was there. She was a patient, and the patient had dementia,
Mm-hmm.
so didn't really kind of knew what was going on, but not really as well. Obviously, was able to answer questions, but really wasn't oriented to where she was or what was going on. So I walked in, and the stepfather was, I got introduced to him that Friday and wasn't really talkative, but I just thought it was just his nature. And, you're looking at elderly people. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you have someone who's asking a lot of questions in the medical field, like the daughter, for instance, they kind of just are just stand by and just listen and, take it and agree with what's going on. So they don't usually intervene too much. It's, it happens. So I walk in the room and, he immediately gets up very quickly and he's behind the bed. And I'm like, first time I ever seen him get up really that fast. Because usually everyone, they sit down, there's breakfast or, in the room and whatnot for the family members. So I asked a question. I said, "Oh, is her daughter, what time she's coming?" And he goes, "No, I'm not sure." And I'm like, "Okay, well, everything looks prep and ready for surgery, so I'll see you guys afterwards. And if she comes by, then let her know and just have her call me or text me, and I'll come right by." So just nods, and then her mom's like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah,
So
just like sweet, nice.
yeah,
She doesn't know what's really
yeah.
happening, so she's like, "Thank you."
And I'm coughing up a storm, and I'm
Oh,
like, "Oh
okay.
God!" I'm like, "I got to get out too," because I wanted to let out a really loud cough.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, "All right." So I walk out of the room, and where her room is situated, it's in the floor. It's kind of near the elevator. So I walk out to the left side. I start walking about 20 feet past the elevator, so that literally when I'm walking, the elevator opens, and she's coming in. And we just miss each other by like what, 20 seconds or so,
The
25, 30
daughter.
seconds. The daughter, she comes
Okay.
in. So at that moment, then obviously we missed each other. So walking a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you hear three really loud gunshots, and
Did
you're
you know it
like,
was a gunshot?
"Oh yeah." When you hear that noise, and the interesting part is you don't know where it came from
Mm-hmm.
because everything echoes.
And it's just loud.
So it's just really loud. And, in the hospital, we have druggies. We got people who are, probably even dealing drugs or, and you don't know what it is. Your concept of what's going on is where's this coming from? And, what do you do? So, moment everyone heard that, the whole floor is like they're all running
So you
everywhere.
still were on the floor when it happened.
Yeah, I was still on the
You
floor
didn't
when it
go down the
happened.
elevator.
No, I was actually going to take the back staircase.
Oh, okay.
And so everyone's running. Obviously, you hear gunshots. You don't know if it's like a terrorist on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
someone who's going down the hallway with the gun and just shooting at people. But it didn't. There was no more gunshots, but it was echoing so loud that your hearing it gets a little affected, and
Mm-hmm.
little people are disoriented, and all of a sudden you hear obviously the hospital starts calling in overhead the codes, like
Mm-hmm.
I believe is a code black or silver.
Black.
There's black is, yeah,
Active
code black
shooter.
or active shooter, whatever the code is for that. And so I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, and I'm like, oh God. I go, one thing that crossed my mind was, is there a shooter going room to room?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? But I look back and I didn't see anything. So I'm like kind of inching towards there. I go, should I go back in and see? Because it was, her mom and her stepdad were there, and I was like, let me just maybe take a quick look and see what's
Just
going
because
on.
that family you had a personal connection to.
Yeah,
So you're like,
yeah.
let me go
Well,
check
and then
back.
you see everyone else and what's
What are they
going
doing?
on and
Screaming,
everything, right?
running,
I
or
mean,
what was the
oh yeah, people were hiding in the there were like nurses that were trying to protect the patients in a room, and they were closing the doors. People in the middle nurses station were getting underneath that, and everyone was calling 911.
screaming,
Yeah,
crying,
I mean,
chaos?
literally within probably 2 minutes of that, you hear helicopters overhead. all over the hospital. What's
Do
going
you
on.
know when they called the code if they said where it was or they just
Mm-mm.
called it?
No one knew where it was.
Mm.
They just called it. I believe they said third floor. It was like a third floor or whatever, fourth floor, whatever floor this hospital we were at.
Mhm.
But there was nothing. It was just chaos,
Yeah.
as you would expect in that type of situation.
I would have gone to the stairwell and I would have gone down it if I were
Yeah.
you.
Well, I was right by the stairwell, and then there was like a couple other docs like, "Let's get out of here," like go down. I'm like, so wasn't trying to be a hero or anything, but I was just like, I didn't hear any more, so I was like, it sounded like to me like,
Isolated
yeah,
event.
maybe a little bit of an isolated, but again, you don't know what you're thinking. It could be anything.
Yeah.
So start inching back towards the room, and
Mhm.
then at that point, I'm like, the doors are closed and everything, so. I'm like, all right, let me just knock. I should still remember the room number. I won't say just for the hospital,
So
purpose.
you
But
knocked on a closed
no, I
door.
opened it. I ended up opening
You
it.
didn't knock.
Did not knock.
Okay.
I ended up opening it, and there was a charge nurse, kind of right near me as well. And
What do you mean
so
charge nurse? Not a lot of people know.
so charge nurse is the nurse who is in charge of the floor
Mhm.
and all the nurses, and she's kind of the supervisor
Like a team
for
lead
everyone.
kind of.
Yeah, like a team lead.
Mhm.
So I we go in the look in the room, and there was just puddle of blood everywhere, and I'm like, oh my
What do
gosh.
you mean a puddle is or a puddle of blood?
So
Like, because you see it in the movies, you see
yeah,
it in shows. How much blood are we talking?
mm, like the floor was covered in blood
The whole floor.
around there. So when I walk in the room, there is a young female body on the floor. And there is a gentleman, there's a sink right on the left-hand side of the room. And so the bed's in the middle.
Mhm.
There's a body on the right side, right next to the bed. On the left side, if you look, there's like a bathroom and a sink. And there was the gentleman, the stepfather, he was in a vertical position with his head down.
Mhm.
And I thought,
Did he have blood around him?
so there was a little bit, I didn't see it in a sink. And then I didn't even see if there was any weapons or anything. And I thought I thought he was crying actually. I didn't know
Yeah.
if he was actually,
So you walk in and you immediately see blood. What's your thoughts?
oh, this is where the shooting clearly was.
Yeah, but did you want to run?
Oh, God, no. No.
You didn't want to run. So your doctor
So
instincts
we
kicked in.
started calling, so then they started calling the charge nurse, then
You
we
hit the
knew where
code
it
button.
was, but there was still a lot of chaos out there.
Yeah.
And very quickly, there was like sheriffs, which I now know that like, they would hit every floor of the hospital, like AK-47s,
Mhm.
and they were going through every hallway, seeing what was going on. So very quickly, then we were able to identify
This is where
that
it
this is the room
happened.
where it happened. Now, was it someone that had walked by? Was it someone that you know um, um, came in, shot them, left, or was it a murder suicide? We had no clue what was going on from that
Mhm.
component. So then
So
I
rewind for me. You're walking into the room. You see a woman with blood everywhere.
mhm,
Did you immediately go to her first?
yes,
You and the charge nurse? Just
yes,
you? You
got
both went to
she
her.
got the code cart.
Oh, good. Okay.
There was a code cart right outside
So the code
happened to be
cart,
right outside,
if people don't know, it's a huge cart with all your supplies that you need to run a code,
bright
aka
red.
someone who doesn't have a pulse. And it's heavy. It's big. But the
It's
charge
huge.
nurse, it's almost like football practice. They practice all the time running it around the corner.
Yeah,
So she was probably well versed, ready to go. So
yeah.
you guys start a code on this woman.
hmm So we see that there is blood. You could tell that she was someone was shot in the head and in the chest.
She was?
She was.
Oh my God.
So did not, her and I both were feeling for pulses, started CPR immediately. We're kneeled down on the ground, and we're kind of obviously like,
Freaking out.
yeah, in a very controlled manner, like,
Controlled, yeah.
let's get the meds, let's she's trying to insert an IV in her so we can
Wow.
get everything, the medications in to try to restart her heart.
hmm
And meanwhile, then we start screaming for help.
I was about to say, when
Right.
did that start? The
Well,
screaming.
she started screaming for help, assistance. So as we're, doing CPR, and she's trying to get IV because we're trying to attend to her.
hmm
So then I'm looking and I'm like, is he okay? And she goes, he shot himself in the head. because she saw the gun. There was a gun in the sink.
Was it like a pistol?
Yeah,
Did
it
you
was
ever get
a
to see the gun?
yeah, I don't really remember it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a
But
big
but then
blur,
I
that
saw
part.
it, but I was like, why is his body standing? Like, it was a vertical. It was really, like, I was
It's
not expecting
eerie.
that, right? Like,
So he's standing straight
it was
up,
still up.
shot himself,
Yep. And
and somehow still standing.
mm-hmm. It's somehow where the body was leaning, it just
Just stayed.
stood there,
The
right?
balance of
Yeah. And
What about the patient? The
she had
actual
no idea what was going
patient?
on.
No
The
way.
dementia was so advanced.
Where was she sleeping or was she
She was
awake?
awake, but like in her mind, I'm assuming that she was like, there's some events going on. And she didn't realize that was her daughter there. She didn't realize I was,
She probably didn't
that.
even realize who that
She had no
was
clue
coming in
what's going on.
in
Right.
a normal situation,
Right.
possibly.
Right. So we're doing CPR. We're, some more people came in to help assist with
Hmm.
that. Got a stretcher, and we had to put her up on there. And then, so this is on the floor, right? This is like it's a medical surgical floor. So meaning it's not an ICU or a
Not meant
surgical
for
floor or anything like
trauma
that.
like this.
Right. Yeah. But luckily, right down the hall, there was an ICU. So, we're like, she has a gunshot wound to her brain and she has a gunshot wound to her chest.
Were you holding those
So
like closed or just letting her
we're just
bleed?
doing CPR.
Just CPR.
We're doing CPR with trying to get her resuscitating fluids. And we knew there was, so started shooting out orders, right? So we started shooting out orders saying, we need neurosurgery in here stat. So then before you know it, 10 seconds later, they're paging overhead in a hospital neurosurgery stat to the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get everything prepared, right? As we're going all the way down the hall
She's
with her.
actively losing blood
Yeah.
while you're pushing her down the hall.
Yeah. I mean, and
So
at
is there
some
blood all
points,
over the halls?
yeah, there was a
Just a
trail. It
trail of
wasn't, it
blood?
wasn't like, like pouring out,
Because
but
she had already kind
at
of
that
done
point,
that.
right, at that point, it's on the floor and she was oozing, but didn't really even think to see, what kind of trail it was or how bad, because we're
Just
trying to
stick.
get her into ICU
Yeah.
because we felt that if she got shot in the chest, maybe there was enough blood that causes tamponade in the heart,
Hmm.
meaning the heart has no room to beat, and because the sac that surrounds it is filled with blood.
Hmm.
And sometimes if you put a drain in there and let it out, then the heart can beat. Maybe we could get a pulse
Hmm.
and try to try to revive her. So we have her in the ICU, the intensive. There's a whole ICU team there.
How many people were in the room
Oh my
when you get to
gosh.
ICU?
Ooh.
Roughly. I know it's
I mean, there's
probably
maybe
hard to
3, 4
remember.
doctors at that point,
Hmm.
including myself. Tons of nurses and a lot of people outside of the door.
That
So
didn't like go down the hallway or didn't go down the stairs. They
yeah,
stayed.
they were in the ICU. Yeah,
Everyone was still there.
yeah. And then so we were continuing to attempt to resuscitate her, with all the medications, with CPR,
Hmm.
put in a breathing tube
They
immediately in
intubated
her
her.
to intubate her.
So she got intubated in the ICU?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then actually my close friend was on call for neurosurgery.
Mm.
And, he comes in and he's like, we can't take her to the OR. He's like, we don't have a pulse. We don't have anything.
She's not
He's
stable to
like,
move.
right. She wasn't stable, which we already knew.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do some, measures where we got an ultrasound, put it on her chest to see if we could find the blood that's surrounding the heart. If it is, it's something we could drain quickly.
And was it, this might not have been known at the time, but was it a through and through shot or was the bullet still in her
I
chest?
did not know. Yeah, we didn't know.
Nobody knew,
We did
I
look for
bet.
exit wounds. I mean, we did do the whole
Mm-hmm.
trauma panel where you turn
Flipper.
around and do it and you look for exit wounds. I can't remember if there was an exit wound on this. I believe there was not, if I remember. But it was, I'm assuming it was a close shot. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can't recall that. But we did everything from a trauma standpoint as we would if they showed up in an emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
So emergent ultrasound scans of the belly, of the heart, seeing if everything. By this time, I mean, minutes have gone by. Obviously,
Feels
there's
like
2
probably
gunshot
an
wounds.
hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it feels like forever. And so we're making a decision. What do we do?
Like,
And
are you going to call it?
right, are
Or are
we
we
going
going
to
to
call it? We're going to
continue?
stop. So, I spoke with the ICU doctor. We're like, let's give it a few more minutes. Let's just see if we could try to bring back a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, I'm like, wow, her husband is. I just joined this medical group,
Mhm.
like, and he's a senior in this group, or he's been there for a little bit of period of time, and I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, like he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So detectives and police start, showing up all around the room, of course, because now what
Does
we
she
know,
ever get, like, stabilized?
never,
Never?
no. So we decided to call it after a few minutes.
Mhm.
And so we called it and we stopped CPR and, stopped all life saving measures at that
Mhm.
time that that we were using on her. And so then the question came, what do we do? With the family, notifying the family. So,
Mhm.
that was my impression. We're having the sheriff or the detectives call the husband because I had his phone number.
Usually that's how it
Yeah,
is. The
usually you
sheriffs
think
will
that's how it is,
call
and then, I let them know that I know him. I mean, we weren't, just through,
work.
work, right. So, they go, "Well, why don't you just call him and let him know there's an event that happened and he needs to come to the hospital immediately."
How did you
So,
calmly get on a phone after all of this?
yeah. So I was like, "Huh, why are they not calling?" And I'm coughing, like, I'm not feeling well at all.
You're about to probably
I'm like,
topple over.
yeah, I actually had a really bad cough if I remember at that time. And I was like, I just, I was like, obviously you're in state of shock and everything that you do
Adrenaline.
is all hitting you at that moment.
Mhm.
And so anyways, I made that phone call and I said, "Hey, listen, something bad happened and you need to come to the hospital right away." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Listen, you need to come right now." But I noticed because I was using my phone at that time, you have all this breaking news going on, like ABC
Mhm.
News and all this stuff, and it says shooting at this hospital, and it's completely like, I'm like, so ideally, I felt stupid saying come without really saying it, but for the safety of him driving over
Yeah, you're not
and
supposed to
everything
say.
else, really, it was, as much as I really wanted to, let him know,
Mhm.
to the extent, but I did let him know something serious happened and, you need to
Were
come
you
by right away.
crying on the phone? I mean,
No,
I
I
guess that's
mean,
just me. I'd be
I was still in
crying.
shock,
Yeah.
I was still in shock.
And you didn't
And then
you knew them personally, but it wasn't like family, but
no, I knew them personally from
yeah.
means like there was whenever we had a medical meeting like for our company that we're part of
Mhm.
annually, like Christmas, like I ran into them,
Mhm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So obviously we knew each other's names and physically have met and from that level. But when a loved one's in a hospital, that changes the game too when you know someone and
Yeah.
we're taking care of them, right? So
Mhm.
it kind of just, there's a professional courtesy, so to speak, of just of being there and giving, not that we don't give everything anyways, but it's that little extra
A little personal touch on
right
it.
touch that you just make sure that anything you can do, like give out the cell phone number, they know it,
Mhm.
right? That's why you would give it out in those
Mhm.
type of situations. And you know you someone who's well versed in the medical field, you just say it as it is, right?
Yeah.
When someone's not versed, you're talking to a family, you really start more simple so people can start understanding, and then you kind of go
And
from
giving
there.
them every detail just might stress the family out
Right.
more, because then not knowing and getting told something you don't understand can be worse. But let me rewind again. So you're walking in, you see the daughter on the floor. The mother is confused, but there. The stepfather in the bathroom. I know you weren't like attending to him, you're attending to her, but did anyone attend to him?
They
Were you
attended.
told afterwards, or
Yeah, no, there was another team working on him too, but
full trauma, go to the
yeah,
ice
he
did
did
they
not
go to the
go. He did not.
ICU?
He was like
It was to the
evidently passed away.
mm,
Um, you know,
they didn't try all the life-saving measures that you guys were
No,
doing
I
for
mean,
her.
I don't really remember. There was another team there that was working, but at that point, pupils were fixed. It was a massive brain. How he had done it, it clearly was, he was deceased.
Mhm,
So, with her, there was, it was the front of the head, like, so we know that, um, we have seen people survive gunshot wounds at the top of the head or even
mhm,
the temple. And obviously, the one that's in the chest, that's near the heart, it was a concerning one, but that's where we were hoping we could, if blood was accumulated and we can try to resuscitate her, we
Mhm.
have a better chance of trying to figure out how we can bring her back.
Mm.
Given
So
a
then they call it on her. They've called it on him. Were you there once the husband got to the hospital?
Yeah, so they put us in a special. So after that,
Well, before he gets there, are you getting questioned like crazy from all of
yeah,
the
they get in
police?
question and yes, and they put us in a private room, like everyone. So you have the entire nursing staff on the floor traumatized.
Yeah.
You have ICU staff completely traumatized.
Mhm.
So they put us in a like a big break room and,
But here's my thing, if they are taking all of the staff of the ICU and the med surg unit in a break room, who is attending to the patients that are on that floor still?
well, I mean, it wasn't the entire staff. It was the
Okay.
people who were just like directly involved.
Okay. All right.
So,
Because it doesn't stop. Nothing ever stops. Holidays,
no,
nothing.
yeah, no, they
People
just
need
the
help.
people who are directly involved.
Okay.
So, they put those people in the room, and at that point, I'm like, truthfully, I didn't really want to be there. I was like,
And you kind of felt sick
so
too.
yeah, and I was like, but we're in a break room, and so they brought a chaplain in, and then they started praying.
Hmm.
So, they're like talking about, that's where I was talking with one of the last guests that you weren't there for, Greg, where you witness something and you talk about like family, right? So you talk about like, and that made me probably realize more like the cohesiveness and like the family of like when people witness a trauma and they see something really catastrophic happen, how people, whether it be at work or somewhere else, like they come together. So it ended up being a really more like just a beautiful, heartening type situation to
Of coming
witness that of
together,
coming together.
getting through it
Right.
together.
And they're asking, like, everyone please talk, like, speak and, say
Mhm.
what's in your mind. And
How
I
long do
didn't
you
say,
think you were in there, in
I
that
don't remember,
room?
probably like a good 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, I was gonna say like hours, but
No, no, we're in there. I told him I had to go.
you were like,
Um,
"This is enough
but
for the
no, it was,
day."
it was, it was good because you saw like the nurses. I
Mhm.
mean, no one was expecting to walk in that day in that type of situation.
Yeah. I mean, you almost weren't
Right.
there.
Right. So it was like one of those situations that you could be walking anywhere and something happens. And it happened at work. And it happened in situations where we all know each other pretty well
Mhm.
or know of each other. And you all kind of come together and witness that. It's a situation that, not many people will really ever be in, which is a great thing. But when you are in that, it's amazing to see how everyone just comes together and gives that support emotionally and what else is
Mhm.
needed for um, making them feel like it's okay to, cry, talk,
Yeah.
speak it out
Whatever you
and,
need.
and everything that's needed, right? Because it's, you get PTSD from that.
Yeah.
It's that type of situation. But no, very quickly I went in the other room where the husband
Had
was coming in
arrived.
and the sons too.
How many sons did they have?
I think two. And they're all in the medical field.
The so the woman who passed, her sons.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
So and she had family to come as well.
All of the
And
family.
everyone was notified in this room of what
Mm.
happened. And
And then they brought them to the
I had to give
hospital.
the news in the room
You had to
myself.
do it
Yeah, I had to
again?
do it again.
You gave the
Yeah.
news,
So gave the
but
news.
you're like, "I wasn't there, but this
Well,
is she was
I
shot."
didn't talk much after that. I
Mm.
just they were all obviously,
Just grieving.
yeah, it was a very that part was very emotional.
Mm.
Obviously, they're assuming something horrific happened, and whether they saw it in their phone in the news break or whatever,
Yeah.
there was a shooting, then clearly you could put one and one together, you
And
know?
I mean, after this event, did you ever touch up with the family later?
So she had family that I had talked to, and
I'm talking days, weeks,
yeah,
months later.
I talked to the brother, her
Mhm.
brother. They were eventually they're like, why did this happen?
Yeah.
And obviously, in any family situations, there's always whether there's an argument or whether there is a lasting situation like power of attorney
The
or healthcare
dynamic, yeah.
decisions or you own this house and you're not giving us access to this and therefore money oriented type situation. So
Mhm.
I believe this was a power of attorney type situation and a house situation that probably dealt with
Between
money
the
and
stepfather and the
right and a
daughter.
daughter, and if I can't have this, you can't have this, so to speak.
Got into like a
Yeah.
what they owned.
Right. And
Mm.
then, yeah, so we talked about that a little bit. And then later, I believe I never saw it, but I was told by them that he wrote a little bit of a suicide note on my business card.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So I never saw it or anything,
Well, they
but
probably didn't want you to see it.
yeah, I mean, obviously I felt like at that point it was
Uh,
not really my business either,
no,
but
and you had gone through enough trauma of doing all of that. I don't
right.
think they needed to bring you into any more.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, I mean, you kind of do want to know what's going on because you're like, gosh, like why did this
Like,
happen?
you
You
need an
question it,
explanation
right?
too, of
Right.
course.
Like, you want closure of like what happened. And not that
Yeah.
there's ever significant closure, but at least it's something
Mhm.
of what you
Some
experience.
feeling of closure.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you knew that there were some maybe internal issues with the family and with this stepfather, but did you ever keep going back and trying to relive what the hell did I talk to him about right before
I had
that?
to go see patients after that for the rest of the day.
Oh my
Like,
god.
yeah.
But go back in your head, like, when you went in there to speak with him, it just seemed like in just the run of the mill going in from before someone goes into surgery and you let them know,
Right.
"Hey, everything's all in order,
Right.
all set," and you leave just like you would any other patient any other day. Did you go back and try to relive what you said and were like, did I say anything?"
Well, I looked back and I remember seeing the stepfather in a cafeteria or there was a deli or so in the weekend. And I remember stopping by and asking how he was doing and everything's okay. And I felt like there was an awkward conversation. Usually people will talk more back and he didn't talk much.
Mm,
So I did remember that part. And of course, you look back and you see when you walk in the room, his movement, even though at that point I noticed it, but didn't think much of it because maybe, how you wake up a family when you come in so early and they kind of get startled a little bit.
yeah.
So he thought it was one of that. But in reality,
He was
he was
kinda
probably he was
shifty.
waiting for her, right?
So
So
you
if that was
walking
me
in.
coming in, right, and I could have been her, or if I had seen her, texted her, her and I could have been walking in together,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that was probably 20, 30 seconds away from that happening.
What kinda movements did you see from him, like, when
He was
you
sitting down and quickly jolted up, and he had his hands in his pockets.
never took him out?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Probably holding on to the gun,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah. Now you look back, and that's probably what it was. And you look back, you're like, wow, I literally could have just walked in the room with her because we just literally missed each other
Mhm.
within just that short time frame. And you're like, what would have happened? You
Yeah.
know?
So, after the chaplain everybody meeting with the chaplain, getting through all their thoughts at the moment, did the hospital provide you specifically, because I know you can't really speak of everybody else, but did they provide you any post-traumatic counseling or services of any sort?
Yeah, I mean, I believe they did. I mean, it was offered, obviously, but
Mhm.
I didn't really,
Like, did they follow up with you? Did they
yeah, they did.
They did?
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, everyone's like, "Wow, can't believe this happened. Are you okay?" And it gets to the point where so many people ask, it's like, "Yeah, I mean, what do you do, right?"
Yeah.
So,
But they didn't mandate anything either before you had to go back? I mean, you said you saw patients
yeah,
that day, just went along your daily day.
yeah.
But to me, I feel like it should have been mandated for you to at least see someone, talk to someone, work through what just happened to you.
They offer I mean, I believe the sheriff department had their people and the hospital had their people as well. And,
But anyone offering it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, it's okay."
yeah,
But I
I
think it
do
should be
remember the
mandated
charge nurse
it.
very quickly left the hospital. She quit.
Yeah,
I think it
but
was within
that's
months or so.
my thing is, like, she should have gotten mandated help.
I was more worried about them because, I not saying I was stronger or anything, but
Mhm.
I was more worried, like, because her and I shared a special bond during that instant. And, you see the fear in her eyes and you're trying to be calm in that
But it's like
situation as
you're
well,
having the
right?
same
So,
fear, but you can't
right.
show
She
her
probably
that
saw it in
fear.
mine as well and
Yeah.
everything, but you can't really show it because you have one goal and one goal right there in front of you
Mhm.
and you got to do it. So that probably was you know, and then I ended up hearing 911 calls later. They released the recordings.
Oh, like on the
So on
news.
the news.
That had to
So
be.
yeah, so you heard the 911 calls and you hear these like texts that were like hiding and
Mhm.
they're like crying. They're like, there's
Mm.
someone with a gun, don't know where it's coming from. So it's like, oh crap. Like, you start to hear that as if, you hear in the news a home invasion and like there's someone there. Like, so everyone's fear was geared towards, is there someone out there and they're just randomly shooting people
Mhm.
and they were scared, but they're all went in the rooms to protect patients.
But it's just crazy that she ended up no longer working because of this.
Yeah, I don't know where she went. She may have worked somewhere else, but I do, I'm sure that played a big role
Hopefully,
in
the
that.
hospital helped her in
Oh,
this
it took me months to get
transition.
back into that room. I didn't have a patient in that room for a while, and it was a very common floor.
And I was gonna say, so
But
you go after this, all this trauma, and then you have to go and see another patient. When you walked into that room, I mean, did you just were you in shock? So you were able to do
well,
that?
they quarantined that area with tape.
Or like another patient room?
Yeah, I mean,
Were
I
you
went.
able to walk in normally?
Yeah, it took me a few weeks to really walk back in there and see what it was really like. And then
Mm,
I was in place for a couple years, and I did have patients there. And every time you're in that room, you're just thinking like exactly what happened.
yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
it's
that's I feel like if anybody had a traumatic incident to a patient in a certain room, it takes a long time to not forget, but kind of press it down deep
yeah,
until you can just go into it normally.
yeah. I think the main point out of seeing the good positive part is just everyone coming together.
Mhm.
To me, that was the most amazing. You know.
Even not just that day, over time,
Oh yeah,
everybody's still
yeah.
coming together.
Everyone's always checking up. Hey, are you okay? If you ever want to go grab a drink,
Mhm.
blah blah blah. Just let us know.
Mhm.
You know.
What about so I'm focusing just on the hospital, how, like, this could have been prevented,
Right.
of course, because we've talked so much
Well,
about
the funny
shootings.
we talk about PTSD, the elderly population with dementia, and you don't know what because you feel like they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So those actually scare me the most. People are scared of younger, this, that. So actually, in
It's made
my
you scared
mind,
of the
it's made
older
me a little
community.
bit more, nah, yeah, scared, but it's made me more like, huh,
Cautious?
yeah, like definitely more cautious
Mm.
because it does add that dimension that I never would have thought could have happened. A family member in a room and doing something like that so dramatic
Mhm.
and knowing what you're doing. Yeah, it's just but you look at I forget age, it might have been 60s, 70s, maybe even close to 80s, I can't remember, but like you think about it, you're like they really have nothing to lose if they're really upset,
Mhm.
like they can.
They're at the end of their life
Yeah, I mean, it's
anyways.
at the end, it's at
Mhm.
the situation that you know they they nothing will stop them if that's really
Mhm.
what they want to accomplish. And I guess nothing will stop anyone, but it just put him in the back of my mind, that type of situation that you just would not expect. Because you think you're walking in a situation to be a young druggie or dealer or
Yeah,
someone
someone
who
out of
looks
their mind.
sketcy and, they got
Mhm.
something. And, we
He looked
see
like an
that
old man, just a
just look like an
run of the
everyday
sweet old
elderly
man.
gentleman who was
Quiet.
quiet and, you never would have suspected otherwise. That part is probably the scariest part
You would
because
have not have
that just
expected
creeped
it.
up like, wow, where did this come from?
Mhm.
You know?
So, at the time, I don't know if you knew, but did the hospital have any metal detectors,
No,
security? No,
none,
nothing.
nothing.
Do you know if they do now?
Security guards did not have weapons.
Oh, wow.
That was a scary part too. So that question was like, what if this was a
Active one.
active shooter,
That was not a
which
one
happens in
person.
hospitals. This happened in New York. There's actually a doctor who came in. He had a shotgun and started shooting everyone on the floor for like multiple floors. And but that brings in question, they had no they had no real weapons to
Fight back.
subdue or fight back or protect people.
Mhm.
What are they going to do if you don't have something to fight back with?
So now do they?
This particular hospital, I don't know. I can't
Mhm.
remember. I know, of course, in the ER, there's always sheriff and police there.
Yeah.
I believe that day there probably happened not to be. Maybe it was too early. But, if you
Mhm.
go to another major hospital, we see police at a level one trauma all the time in the ER
But
and,
only in
and,
the
and that.
ER. They're
Yeah,
nowhere else.
or if they're supervising a prisoner or anything like
Yes.
that. But yeah, I mean, you have to be in that, right? They have to be
Mhm.
there. I'm not sure what changes were specifically made to protect because, one may say, hey, it was a murder suicide. It would have happened one way or the other. It's not like someone came in and did it, but it still brings concerns and questions of how do you manage and handle this type of situation.
Just because you know hospitals, they're very, very locked down.
Oh, yeah.
So there's usually when visitors come in, there's only one main entrance for these visitors to come in.
Which now at the hospital we have, they have
I was
now
about to
they
say,
detect, for
just now
guns.
though,
Yeah.
January of 2023, of all
Yeah.
of the shootings, I'm so glad they started screening.
Right.
Well, because of incidences.
Right.
But it's like, what? Let's everybody do this now.
Yeah.
How many more need to happen before we just the easiest thing? It's a metal detector. It's a screening process.
Right. And
Just
things
5
happen
more
in the hospital all
minutes
the time.
all the
Or
time.
at a doctor's office, there's,
I will
been
say
reports.
personally, we have confiscated so many items that have come in because it's also, you never know when someone comes in through like an ambulance
Mhm.
if they have something that wasn't
Hidden.
seen or their bag wasn't searched because the primary focus was them because they
Right.
might have been actively dying,
Mhm.
or if the visitor they had with them, they're not getting actively searched because they're freaking out about the person they're with.
Right.
So things do get in,
Right.
which is terrifying.
Drugs.
Anything, drugs, needles, like,
Right.
we're in those beds.
Right.
So if something's in there that we don't know about, we could get harmed by it.
Right.
And I know now we have people on video, so then we can watch if they're up to something. But definitely glad with the improvements of the screenings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely makes a big difference, hopefully in at least mitigating any future disaster at the hospital where you work, because everyone has to have a safe work environment no matter
Mhm.
what. And it really does come down to, we see all kinds of walks of life that come into the hospital. And
Oh, yeah.
whether they are someone who shot someone or someone who got shot, like we treat them the same,
'Cause
right?
you
If
don't
we're trying to
know
save their lives,
who
right?
did what.
Well, even if we did know, we're supposed to
Our
our
duty,
duty is our job to save these people no matter what.
and treat everyone the
And
same.
everyone is treated the same.
Mhm.
So, that's supposed to be a safe environment. And in your minds, that's what we think and we believe in. So, when
Mhm.
something like that happens, I think that's probably the most traumatic. It's almost like being in your house and saying, hey, this is the safest place I could be. We kind of feel like that at work. We see things, but at the same time, and we know things can happen, but
Mhm.
you feel like you're protected because you're at work, right? And
Yeah.
there's people there and can do stuff and help out if a situation were to occur, just
Well,
like we talked about before.
do you have any maybe opinions on or ideas on, like, how maybe they can improve it, the security, or improve the screening? Or make our work environment at a hospital safer for nurses?
I definitely think screening for weapons of people coming in is definitely a priority and a need for everyone.
Mhm.
Obviously, you know, uh, you cannot stop everything.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, people do come in with knives. People do come in with this and that. I think in general, hospitals and nurses and everyone who sees the patient, they do a very good job of screening and finding things.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's just that one time that it gets missed or it's not seen is where something can happen.
Yeah.
Of course, we could say, yeah, we could have armed security. We can have,
Pat
much better.
downs.
Yeah, but then you're walking into a hospital where you have a loved one who has cancer, and you don't want to be patted down, right? Like
Mhm.
they're already going through a lot emotionally, and so I see
Mhm.
both sides of it, but I do think there definitely needs to be a baseline security that's higher tier that protects the people within their work and visitors and patients themselves.
Mhm. I definitely think even right now, the screening process at, like, very large hospitals in our areas, they only screen the visitors, not the employees.
Is that the case?
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. I walk in every day. Just walk on in with a big old bag,
right.
walk out with a big bag, and of course, I'm not a threat, but
Yeah.
it's just interesting to see because your example was that physician
Yeah.
who was so burnt out and had like a psychotic break and came in, and we talk about burnout all the time, but yet we're still not screening the people who might be at the highest risk.
It's a tough call. I mean, as a CEO, it's like, you want your workers to come in and
Do you think they'd feel safer if they knew the rest of their employees were at least safe as well?
yeah, I mean, of course, I think so. It's a tough decision, to make. I think they do background checks on employees. They do a lot of different stuff that helps supposedly protect. Of course, we know that can be, it is what it is. Anyone can have a perfect background check, but snap,
Yeah.
you know, years later and
On a
be a
random
different
day.
person. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough call. I'm just thinking from a CEO standpoint of a hospital of what
Mhm.
that would do to employee morale and everything else too. But yet
Like, do
knowing,
you think they would think they'd be, like, getting, like, kind of attacked in a way? Like, the
yeah, I
staff?
mean, I don't know. Your staff. What do you think?
I would say, well, this is me too, because I'm, like, very vigilant. I would be happy because I know my coworkers, and I know some of them get very stressed out, and
Hmm.
sometimes there is that one person where, like, I'm a little worried about them. Would be nice if they got screened when they came into the hospital, not just the visitors.
Right.
And, I mean, I just think it would make everyone feel safer to know that the rest of their employees are also not having anything in their bags.
There's another hospital we go to, and they screen everyone.
See, the fact that you were like, "Do they really?" I was like, "Yeah, no, it's just visitors."
Yeah.
And it
No, I'm
just
thinking of the other
started.
one, and they screen everyone through entrances.
Mhm.
But of course, employee entrances are also different because there's it's a different, what do you call it? Provides a little privacy away from the visitors and
Mhm.
security as well because, you know, I've had instances where families are confrontational when they see an employee at the entrance of a hospital or outside and they're walking to their car,
Yeah.
because there's upset family and stuff like that too.
Oh, I
So
would definitely say
I think there's that protection, right? Yeah,
keep
but
the separate entrances, but what's the harm in putting a metal detector on the
right.
other entrance?
Well, we also wear a lot of hardware too, right? Like stethoscopes that can go off, and
Yeah.
scissors and stuff
We
like
actually do
that,
have a
right?
lot of things that would go off. You
So
make a
there'd be a
good point.
lot of things. So imagine the bottleneck that will
Mhm.
cause too, and then you're late for your shift.
Yeah.
And then
But I
there's
mean, late for your shift
patient care affected. I'm just playing devil's advocate, though. I'm just thinking now out loud that there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong.
with
Not go
screening the
wrong, but that could really cause
staff.
problems.
I'm like, if you're late for work or if you don't even get to go to work because a catastrophic incident
Well,
happens.
I think that's where vigilant employees who know your surrounding, they
Mhm.
need to speak up too, right?
I mean,
If there
Anthony Kuntz would
is,
agree, you gotta be vigilant.
yeah, you got to be, but you have to also, you got to know who you work with too. And
Mhm.
if you see a stressor that is a cumulative effect and it's just getting worse and worse. And then now it's just like, I mean, there should be probably avenues to channel that out and express that, say, hey, I'm concerned about my coworker,
Without
right?
it being like
Without having it being, and then maybe there just a little discussion. Hey, is everything okay? I think we should do that anyways, but maybe
mhm,
that environment should be encouraged to be
mhm.
able to do that.
I mean, and that's why I ask, because it is another opinion
Yeah.
on the subject of
I mean,
if
that's a tough one. I don't know. I think it should be open and we should be able to I think we should be able to identify stressors in people cuz think about it, we know people every day and we can see when someone is stressed
mhm,
or acting different versus when they're not, and sometimes that's just normal, right? We're just jaded by seeing it every day. Not jaded, we're immune to it
mhm,
by seeing it every day. And, it's not abnormal to be stressed in our field.
yeah.
But if you see something, that's not appropriate or it doesn't add up to the levels that we're used to seeing, then I think that, definitely that causes and raises some flags.
Well, I agree with it, but I just don't think there's a system in place right now that allows that.
Yeah, I mean, but see, this can happen anywhere, as we know. Doctors' offices. There was a pain management doctor, I believe, in Michigan, or a
Mm,
patient was in so much pain, and he shot the doctor and then himself.
because he felt like the doctor wasn't managing the
And then
pain.
there was a urologist that did a procedure. The patient had, I believe, some erectile problems, and he shot the doctor and himself as well.
Mm,
I mean, you see it in the news. I see it. We see it in our emails. If you're healthcare providers, you get these special, like, Medscape emails of
um,
incidences that happen or Facebook pages you're attached to of what happens. But I think it's a universal problem. I think it's just shining a little bit more, and probably there are definitely more cases of this happening. There's hospital shootings is very scary, and it is something that hopefully with technology and more advances and situations that come up, we're able to find ways to protect the hospital and the people in it more and more.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your honestly traumatic story, but hopefully you can influence some facilities and people to be more aware
Yeah.
and maybe increase some security in their hospital.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely shines a light, brings up a question, and
And wants to prevent this ever from happening again.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's why I wish no one to ever have to go through anything like that. So it's definitely something that hopefully can bring discussion and see where it goes.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for
All right.
listening.
Well, thank you, everyone.